Exiled by my son after his sudden wealth. What I discovered next was truly transformative. Martha sat on the edge of her bed, her breath hitching as she clutched a framed photo of Lucas at his 11th birthday, a boy with dirt-streaked cheeks and a smile that could light up the darkest corner of her modest home. Now, at only 21, he had become a millionaire overnight, his charm and youthful exuberance eclipsed by the heavy weight of sudden wealth. Just 2 weeks ago, they were navigating their quiet life in a small Texas town together. Now, he avoided her calls, swatting away her attempts at connection like flies. This wasn't he the son she raised. This wasn't he the life she knew, sitting in the bustling clinic where she worked, the air filled with antiseptic and the faint hum of machinery. Martha wrestled with conflicting emotions. Each patient came and went, their smiles contrasting her own furrowed brow. She felt the pull of the duty she had devoted her life to while experiencing the ache of betrayal. Lucas's inheritance had created a yawning chasm between them. Why was he distancing himself? Was loyalty supposed to run deeper than money? The very values she instilled were unraveling before her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Turning back to her patients, Martha felt her heart race as she caught glimpses of the next generation of medical students wandering into the clinic. They reminded her of Lucas once upon a time, filled with hope and ambition. Yet, the memories became heavy reminders of the dreams she once had, before wealth erased all sense of their shared reality. Each question they posed brought her closer to a painful truth: she was pushing Lucas into a world he seemed desperate to escape. The weight of her insecurity spiraled. Was it petty to feel envious of a fortune that should have brought them prosperity? The mere thought plagued her with guilt. Her heart alternated between deep sorrow and resentment, trapped within her own skin, every thought of her son wrapping tighter around her like a vice. She feared that helping others might come off as a betrayal toward the very principles he had abandoned, yet the thought of doing nothing felt like surrender. As she cradled a stethoscope, lost in thought, the door swung open, and Mrs. Thompson, a former professor, stepped in. The warmth radiating from the elderly woman pulled Martha from her spiral. They sipped coffee, exchanged pleasantries until Mrs. Thompson's stories revealed a lineage of eminent medical practitioners in Martha's past who had faced trials of their own. A quiet flame ignited within her. Could she reclaim her purpose in a world that now belonged to Lucas? Suddenly, the emotional tension mounted, thickening like fog until it became immobilizing. A confrontation loomed on the horizon, inevitable and heavy. The tightness in her chest expanded at the thought of Lucas rejecting her values and her. She had spent a lifetime nurturing him, or was this the fruit of her labor? Her determination to mend their rift played against the fear of never reconnecting. With the world around her suddenly blurring, Martha stood frozen, engulfed by uncertainty. Amid a storm of deepening anguish and a desire to reunite with the son who had turned his back, she felt life weaving into a tapestry of dread. Would their bond survive the titanic change wealth could wreak? She stared down a path fraught with complexities, her heart racing toward a confrontation that would ultimately define them both, uncertain and desperate for a resolution that felt just out of reach. Martha spent the next few days enveloped in a haze, a mix of unyielding hope and an undercurrent of dread. The patient-filled clinic buzzed around her like bees swarming a hive, but her mind lingered elsewhere, tangled in thoughts of Lucas. Each tick of the clock echoed loudly, reminding her of the looming confrontation she was both steeling herself for and procrastinating. She had rehearsed her words countless times in front of the mirror, practicing the delicate balance between empathy and firmness. What had she done wrong? Had she failed him by encouraging dreams that now seemed self-indulgent and misplaced? The reflection swirled, causing a deep unease to coalesce in her gut. Nights were spent wide awake, thoughts ricocheting off the walls of her mind, begging her to find clarity. On Friday afternoon, determined to face her fears head-on, Martha made her way to the corner cafe, Lucas's favorite spot since childhood. The familiar rustle of waitstaff preparing for the busy dinner rush soothed her nerves, if only a little. She drummed her fingers on the table, her heart racing, each beat resonating like a countdown. Perhaps he would come, she thought, perhaps he would feel drawn back to the familiar comforts of his youth, a mother who just wanted to connect, a reminder of the values that once reigned supreme. Clarity emerged in that moment. It wasn't solely about wealth or success, but the grounding force of family. She could remind him of the warmth he had in his childhood, juxtaposed against the luxurious coldness of newfound riches. Hours ticked away without sign of Lucas, and just as she contemplated leaving, a shadow fell over her table. There he was, disheveled yet handsome, an aura of money and youth enveloping him. The eyes locked for a heartbeat, shame and bewilderment flickered across his face. "Mom," he managed, as though testing the weight of the word. "Martha," she corrected gently, leaning into the discomfort but willing to embrace it. She couldn't mask the hurt that colorfully painted her features. "I came hoping we could talk." He dropped into the seat opposite her, a world of hesitations rattling in his gaze. "Talk about what?" The edge in his voice betrayed a mix of defensiveness and embarrassment. "About us," she said, drawing upon every shred of her conviction. "I want to understand. I don't recognize the person you've become, and it's breaking my heart." Lucas shifted uncomfortably, as if physically repelled by the honesty in her words. His jaw tightened, and the drained expression suggested a night of tossing and turning mirroring her own. "What is to understand, Mom? I've changed. The world is different for me now. Money opens doors. That is precisely the problem," she blurted, voice rising. "You're letting it shape you. You've turned your back on everything we've worked for. I am not here to judge the wealth you've gained, but to help you navigate its consequences." Silence wrapped around them heavily. Martha felt as though she had thrown a grenade, leaving remnants of silence to settle in. There was a realization creeping in. His wealth wasn't just a source of pride for him, it also reflected a resentment he didn't fully comprehend. "Sometimes I just think I'm better off without the past," he said quietly, as though testing the waters. "It's a burden, Mom. I'm living, and you just can't see that." "What is living, Lucas?" The question hung like a challenge between them, daring him to defy her conviction. Tension surged, igniting the air. Would he fight back against her relentless desire to understand, or would he finally face the foundational values that had once interlinked their lives? Martha braced for the response as Lucas swirled the remnants of his coffee. Her heart pounded, the answer looming just out of reach, hanging precariously in the silence that enveloped them, forcing her to confront the truth she both sought and feared. The moment teetered on the edge. Would they reclaim their narrative, or devolve into a dance of avoidance? It was time for revelations, shared truths, and the possibility of healing, yet uncertainty continued to thunder in her mind. She needed to prepare for whatever came next, for the true test of their bond was just beginning. Martha's heart raced as she awaited Lucas's response, the silence between them thickening like fog, pressing upon her chest. Each second felt like an eternity, a cruel reminder of the chasm that had grown between them. As she watched him toy with the coffee cup, she grappled with an overwhelming surge of desire to bridge that distance, to reach the son she once knew, now cloaked in layers of privilege and disillusionment. "Why can't you see that this is who I am now?" Lucas finally snapped, eyes narrowing. A flicker of defiance danced behind them, but there was also a hint of vulnerability. "The past is just that. A past. I don't need it, it holds me back." Martha felt the sting of his words, a sharpness that cut deeper than any physical wound could. "Lucas, letting go of the past doesn't mean erasing it. It shaped you, it built your character. Who you are and who you can be doesn't have to be defined by money or status," she countered, swallowing the lump in her throat. "You're running away. Running away." He leaned forward, intensity pouring from his eyes. "I'm moving forward. I'm making a life for myself, without you or anyone else holding me back." His declaration sliced through her. She steadied herself, forcing down the hurt that threatened to unravel her resolve. Now was not the time to yield to despair. Lucas was wrestling with something deeper, an internal conflict that she had to help him navigate. "What you call moving forward, I see as unmoored chaos. You're losing sight of what truly matters." His cough was almost instantaneous. "What matters? You mean the mundane values you drummed into me like a mantra? Hard work. Sacrifice. What have they brought me but struggle?" A rush of anger flared in her chest, spurring her forward. "No, it was love, Lucas. At the core of those values were family, integrity, and connection. Money is fleeting, the bonds we forge are enduring. You're allowing that meaningless paper to govern your identity. You're more than that." For a moment, clarity sparked in his eyes, but it was quickly eclipsed by defensiveness. "You don't understand, you've never understood," he snapped, anger twisting into palpable hurt. Martha's mind churned. She thought back to their past, the bedtime stories, the lessons about kindness, and the laughter they shared. "But I'm trying, Lucas. I'm here, ready to listen. You don't have to journey through this alone. The challenge isn't in the money, but in how you navigate that wealth while remaining true to yourself." His breath quickened, shoulders clenching in frustration, or was it fear? Martha could sense it now, the underlying turmoil that was driving his harsh demeanor. Lucas was caught at a crossroads, and while she felt afraid of where he was headed, determination surged within her. She was no longer just a bystander. If they were to reclaim their relationship, she had to act decisively. "I'll be your guide, Lucas, if you let me," she said softly. "We can rediscover who you are and redefine what you want your life to be. But you have to meet me halfway." His gaze flickered, the defiance wavering for just a heartbeat. "What if I don't want to be found?" he murmured, a quiet tremor in his voice suggesting an inkling of doubt. In that moment, a sudden wave of hope washed over Martha. It was in vulnerability that she realized they could begin anew. "Then let us explore it together. Let us redefine what it means to live fully and freely, with both feet on the ground, not lost in illusions of grandeur." The weight in the air shifted, a promise hanging in the balance. "But," she added, feeling an urgency spike within her, "what comes next won't be easy. You'll confront fears and face truths that you've hidden from." Lucas's brow furrowed, the battle within him escalating. As he looked away, a vortex of uncertainty swirled between them. She could feel the tension crackling, but also a faint pulse of hope, threading its way into their dialogue. Would Lucas embrace this chance for introspection and growth, or would he retreat further into the safety of his walls? Martha's resolve steeled further. If she was willing to trek this terrain, there was a glimmer of possibility. Yet, the question loomed over them, nagging and persistent: what truth would emerge from these shadows they were both endeavoring to navigate? The next steps could either bind them closer or push them further apart. The journey ahead was uncertain, and her heart ached with the anticipation of what was to come. As the silence lingered between them, Martha's mind raced through potential scenarios. The gravity of their conversation weighed heavily, but she could feel a newfound determination blossoming within her. The prospect of rekindling their connection motivated her to not only reach out to Lucas but also to connect deeper with herself. Her own needs and aspirations intertwined with the fragile strands of their relationship. In the days that followed, Martha embarked on her own journey of reflection, seeking to understand the root of her own fears. She revisited the memories that once grounded her. They weren't simply snapshots of her past, they served as touchstones for the person she had become. Searching for her identity beyond motherhood, she began journaling, an act that once brought her solace during lonely nights. With each word, she confronted her insecurities, her hopes, and the weight of expectations she had carried for so long. In her writing, Martha found clarity. It became evident that this struggle with Lucas was as much about him as it was a call to reconnect with parts of herself that she had pushed aside. Every entry illuminated aspects of her journey that she had neglected: her passion for art, her dreams of traveling, and her desire to cultivate new friendships. These realizations were stark contrast to the sacrifices she had made in the name of motherhood, reflecting a dichotomy between her roles as a parent and as an individual. Martha knew she couldn't effectively guide Lucas toward his own self-discovery without first embracing her own. This revelation sparked a new resolve within her. She began attending art classes and joined a community group focused on writing. These activities weren't merely distractions but rather essential steps toward rediscovering her passion and self-worth. Engaging with others allowed her to see the world through fresh eyes, reigniting her love for creativity and pushing her out of her comfort zone. Amidst this personal development, Martha devised a plan for her next conversation with Lucas. It had to be meaningful, touching upon the lessons she had learned while also respecting the journey he was on. She reached for a piece of paper, crafting a letter, a tangible piece of her heart that she could place in front of him. "Lucas," she began, "I see you struggling and trying to pave your path, but I want you to know you're not alone. In confronting my own complexities, I unearthed parts of myself that I buried in my desire to nurture you. I'd love to share these new experiences with you, to demonstrate how stepping beyond our comfort zones can foster understanding." Before sending the letter, she reflected on its content, wanting to ensure that it conveyed her love while nudging him toward the unknown. It had to strike a balance that was key. After agonizing over every phrase, Martha finally sealed the envelope. As she placed it on the table beside Lucas' favorite chair, a wave of both vulnerability and anticipation coursed through her. She felt the stirrings of hope and trepidation intertwining within her heart. The letter wasn't just a message, it represented a new beginning, an invitation for Lucas to step into a narrative that wasn't solely defined by wealth or tradition. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a notification from a new art exhibition opening downtown. The thought of attending it excited her, but she hesitated, wondering, did she have the strength to go alone? What would it mean for her personal growth if she stepped out into the world for the first time as her authentic self? With a deep breath, Martha made a choice. She would attend, regardless of whether Lucas joined her. As she prepared for the exhibition, the realization washed over her, each small step she took propelling her toward a reclaiming of her dreams and sense of purpose. But as she arrived at the venue, what awaited her was unexpected. A familiar figure stood there, silhouetted against the vibrant backdrop. It was Lucas, his expression unreadable, and in that moment, she knew this chapter of self-discovery had the potential to deepen their connection or to challenge it entirely. Would he seize the opportunity to step into her world, or retreat further into the life he had crafted alone? The answer awaited them both, lined with the tension of unspoken truths and profound revelations. Martha stood frozen on the threshold, the gallery lights casting warm hues around the room, illuminating canvas after canvas of vivid expression. Though she was consumed by the shock of seeing Lucas, her instincts screamed for movement, keeping her from slipping into a mere spectator's role. This was a moment, the culmination of her journey thus far. The noise of chattering voices faded into a distant hum as she took a tentative step forward, her heart pounding. Lucas appeared absorbed in a piece that resonated with tumultuous energy, the turmoil of a storm captured in color. A wave of recognition washed over her. This wasn't just the art that called to her, it was her own journey reflected back, marked by uncertainty and revelation. Lucas, she finally voiced, her voice barely louder than a whisper. He turned slowly, his eyes searching hers for something, perhaps answers or validation. She imagined their reunion countless times, each scenario playing out like the brushstrokes on the canvases around them, bold, tentative, and layered with meaning. Now, complicating that picture was the reality of his wealth. She saw it in the polished demeanor and the designer outfit that hugged his frame, and with it, an intimidating aura seemed to shroud him. How had they arrived at this point? "Mom," he replied, his tone careful, almost testing the boundaries of their interaction. A sliver of vulnerability flashed in his gaze, but it quickly masked by the poised exterior he had created. Martha felt a pang of desperation, the memory of how their closeness had once defined them. The letter she'd written earlier pressed heavily in her pocket, a tangible reminder of her intent to bridge the chasm between them. She took a steadying breath, searching for the right words amidst the swirl of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I came here tonight to reconnect with myself," Martha began, her voice gaining strength. "And I didn't expect to see you, but this feels like an opportunity." The air felt heavy, electric with the possibility of a fresh start. "An opportunity?" he echoed, a hint of skepticism threading through his response. "What do you think we even have to reconnect about? Things have changed." The truth in his statement hit hard. She stole a glance at the artwork, realizing this wasn't merely about the two of them, it was about transcending the barriers society had placed on their lives. "What has changed can also be an avenue for us to grow. You have your ambitions now, and I'm rediscovering my own. What if we use this moment to share?" Martha couldn't ignore the flicker of intrigue in his eyes, tempered by hesitation. To reveal herself fully, her own ambitions, vulnerabilities, and the lessons she had learned would require stepping into the unknown with Lucas. The journey to mutual understanding demanded authenticity from both sides. The silence between them thickened. Each second seemed to stretch, encapsulating the unresolved tension. "I wrote you a letter," she continued, feeling the weight of her conviction. "But instead of putting it in words, maybe we need to talk. I need to understand your world, just as you need to see mine." A long moment passed. The cacophony of laughter and chatter faded into a backdrop, as the significance of the exchange crystallized in the charged air. She knew Lucas teetered on the edge of accepting or retreating, just like she had weeks ago. "Maybe I'll consider it," he replied, his voice softer now, yet tinged with uncertainty. "But how do you expect me to let go of everything I've worked for?" "I don't," she said firmly, "but maybe we can build something together. We don't have to be defined by the weight of expectations or the wealth that looms over us. We can create our own narrative." The challenge that lay within her words resonated with a painful clarity. Martha understood fully that this step would demand mutual effort, the kind of collaboration that had atrophied in their relationship. Would Lucas rise to meet her invitation? Was he ready to engage in the vulnerability that honest reconciliation required? As Thoughts shifted in the air like the shadows playing across the art. He took a deep breath. "Let us talk," he murmured, his expression shifting from guarded to contemplative. For Martha, the glimmer of hope sparked anew the prospect of a dialogue that could unlock shared understanding, but just as they began to navigate their uncharted conversation, a loud ruckus erupted across the gallery as guests flooded into the next exhibit room. Martha's moment of connection with Lucas faced a daunting disruption, and she could feel the threat of retreat looming over them both. How quickly could they reclaim their space amidst the chaos? In that moment, Martha wrestled with the realities of approaching the unknown, and the question lingered, could this fleeting opportunity lead to deeper transformation, or would life as distraction sever the thread of connection before it truly began to weave? Martha's pulse raced as the crowd surged around them, laughter and conversations blending into a disorienting din that swallowed their fragile moment. Tension coiled in her stomach. This was not the setting she had envisioned for such an essential exchange, yet there was no time to wallow in disappointment. "Come on," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, "let us find somewhere quieter." She gestured toward a small balcony outside, bathed in the calming glow of hanging lights. Perhaps the open air would allow them both to breathe, to break free from the intertwined past and the societal constructs that now loomed over Lucas as success like a dense fog. He hesitated, glancing back at the vibrant chaos inside the gallery. The hesitation stirred discomfort in Martha. How tightly the world clung to him. Was success merely a gilded cage? "Okay," he finally conceded, his posture still rigid as he followed her through the throng. Each step took them further away from expectation and closer to something undefined. Outside, the night air enveloped them like a comforting embrace, the soft sounds of the city a gentle backdrop. "Please, just breathe," Martha said, leaning against the railing. "You don't have to be whoever they think you should be right now." Lucas exhaled heavily, a painstaking release of the tension wound up within him. Here, under the open sky, she sensed the flicker of the old Lucas, the curious boy who once shared his dreams without restraint. "I honestly don't know who that is anymore," he admitted, glancing down, avoiding her gaze. "Every choice is weighed against expectations, mine and others. It's like I'm on a stage I never wanted to be on." Martha felt a pang of compassion. He wouldn't have chosen this path, but the weight of those expectations was suffocating. "You're still here. Underneath that facade. What do you want to do?" He fumbled with the words. "I want to paint, but I can't just drop everything that has been laid out for me." "Validating your passion shouldn't mean abandoning your responsibilities," she said, her own knowledge surfacing. "I felt that pain when I made my choices in life, the expectations of others weigh me down. But that is why I'm here, to emerge from the shadows, to break free of what has been prescribed." The mutual vulnerability mirrored the artistic surroundings, each truth serving as a brushstroke adding depth to their shared canvas. "Do you really think we can create something anew?" His skepticism echoed in the air. "Only if we both commit to being honest," Martha replied softly, her resolve thickening. The authenticity she sought wasn't just for Lucas, it was a reclamation of herself, too. She realized how much courage it took to express true desires in the face of external perceptions. His brow furrowed slightly. "But what if being honest tears us apart more than it brings us together? Maybe that is the chance we have to take," she urged. "While we both walked our separate paths, it does not have to dictate our future. We have the power to redefine who we are together, but this means showing who we are at our core, even the messy parts." Taking a breath, she decided to share the most vulnerable part of her reality, the shadows she had avoided. "For years, I subsisted on the notion that I was enough to be loved or fulfilled, and it's only now I'm realizing it's time to dismantle that belief. I don't want that legacy to be what defines our relationship." A spark ignited in Lucas's eyes, a dance between understanding and conflict. "That is easy to say, but I'm not sure how to navigate this life I've created, especially now, with you." Martha watched as he grappled with the intensity of his feelings, assessing his own circumstances with both clarity and confusion. It was a crucial moment where decision-making would chart a course they could either embrace together or let slip away like the memories they both had buried beneath layers of expectation. As silence stretched between them, a realization settled within Martha. She was not merely a mother looking to reclaim lost time, she was a woman. Actively choosing to forge her path, one that might just intersect with Lucas's in profound ways. "Let us pledge to unmask our truths, step by step, however daunting," Martha said, her tone determined. "Together." But before Lucas could respond, a sudden voice called out from the gallery while the crowd's laughter erupted again. "Lucas! Over here!" A figure from his past, a childhood friend, appeared amidst the throng, breaking the sacred pact they were on the verge of forging. Martha felt the energy shift abruptly, a poignant reminder that this journey weighed heavily in the balance. Would the outside world overshadow the connection they were trying to nurture? And how long could they keep the barriers of their new intentions intact when the past continually threatened to intrude? With her heart racing, she faced the unsettling truth. Forging connections amidst chaos demanded resilience and clarity, but would this be the moment that fractured their potential growth, or the pivot that ignited a transformative bond upheld by honesty? Martha's attention snapped back to Lucas, who had shifted focus, his expression suddenly clouded with uncertainty. The burst of familiarity from his old friend punctured the fragile atmosphere they had begun to craft. Was this reunion a thread that could unravel their deepening connection? "Just a moment," he murmured, stepping away from her, his glance darting toward the gallery entrance. She watched his figure briefly retreat before he was swallowed by the crowd, and a bubble of anxiety washed over her. In this fleeting moment, she felt both the exhilaration of their potential and the ominous weight of their past actions. Alone, she leaned on the railing, pulling in a long breath of the cool night air. A restless wind tousled her hair, mirroring her disquiet. The laughter and noise from the gathering went on, seemingly oblivious to the seismic shifts unfolding in her heart. This was no longer just about Lucas, it was also about her renewed ambition to redefine who she was, independent of motherhood and prior relationships. What if she could embrace the exploration she craved right now? The urge to create a life fueled by her own desires sparked an idea. She had spent too long thinking about reconnection. This was the moment to imagine her own narrative anew. The complexity of erasing her old beliefs could blend beautifully with Lucas's journey into self-discovery. When Lucas returned, he was accompanied by his childhood friend, a vibrant personality who appeared all too eager to reclaim the fragments of their shared history. Martha felt the warm intrusion as they drew closer, laughter spilling over like an unwanted drink. She was reminded of the time where Lucas felt unbound, unencumbered by expectations. Yet, she clung to the determination that this connection wouldn't fracture their fragile pact. "Hey, Martha," Lucas said, his tone light but his eyes searching. "This is Jamie, my old buddy." "Jamie, this is my mom." "Of course." Jamie beamed, extending a hand, unaware of the shifting currents underneath this moment. "Lucas has told me about you. It's so great to finally meet a woman who raised such a talent but managed to keep him grounded." The compliment felt muddled. Was that balance really achieved, or simply masked by the molding craft of familial obligation? Martha smiled politely but quickly realized how easy it was for Jamie to overlook the complexities tied to Lucas's success. "Thank you," she managed, her voice betraying a tremor of unease, as Lucas met her gaze, silently assessing her reaction to Jamie's words. "So, are you both enjoying the art scene?" Jamie continued, completely unaware of the tension that had just snared Lucas and Martha. They shared a moment, silently recalibrating amidst the backdrop of celebration. "I suppose art brings out the truth in a way," Martha offered, hoping to lead the conversation into deeper waters. "What truth?" Jamie countered, tilting her head slightly, a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. "The truth is, I think success has a way of shaping people as destinies, don't you?" Lucas stiffened, caught between the walls of expectation and the promise of a different reality. Martha felt the intensity of the moment spiral as they each faced the conversation's layered implications. "Success can be as sticky as paint on a canvas," Martha replied, turning the focus to herself. "It gives vibrant color but can leave unsightly residue behind if not layered properly." "Fair point," Jamie chuckled, but Martha detected a hollow laugh, as if the fragility of that statement hung heavily in the air. The moment dripped with tension, a shared understanding that transcended small talk, forcing all three to confront the unspoken. Would Lucas maintain the path they had begun to carve together, or would he retreat into the comfort of an old friendship that risked overshadowing his emergence as an individual? In the corner of her mind, a flicker of urgency danced the need to ensure their fragile bond remained intact, to spark connections beyond facades. As the night wore on, the chatter around them began to dull. The glow of the gallery lights dimmed against the backdrop of an awakening reality that demanded more from everyone involved. Martha's heart raced again as she considered the implications of Jamie's presence. They had reached an impasse, teetering on the edge of self-discovery and the obstacles of the past woven into Lucas's narrative. "Listen," she began, wanting to reclaim the conversation, to disrupt the current obligations strewn over her and Lucas. "Maybe we should focus on the unknown and not just what others expect from us. How often do we let circumstances shape us instead of asserting who we truly want to be?" But even as she spoke, she wondered, would Lucas recognize the importance of the untamed path ahead, or would the cozy embrace of nostalgia draw him away from the truth they had almost unearthed together? The thrill of uncertainty gripped the moment, setting the stage for choices that would either forge new beginnings or entrap them in the comforts of their past. In that charged silence, Martha knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow could bring clarity or chaos, and she was prepared to embrace either, as long as it meant not stepping backward. Would Lucas rediscover the courage to express his desires, or would he succumb to expectations once again? Martha could feel the pulse of the crowd swell again, laughter and light chatter merging with a sense of inevitability. She stole a glance at Lucas, whose unyielding focus on Jamie twisted a knot in her stomach. The warm familiarity of the exchanges had brightened his features, yet here she was, balancing the precarious weight of her own ambitions against the backdrop of nostalgia that threatened to engulf them both. What did she want? The question spiraled in her mind, an echo of the uncertainty gripping the moment. Rather than yield to the anxiety creeping in, she reminded herself of her resolve. This event was not merely about Lucas's success or Jamie's lively interjections. It was an opportunity, a seminal moment to redefine her narrative. Lucas, she interjected, the intention behind her words sharp and deliberate. He looked at her, caught mid-laugh with Jamie. His expression shifted to one of curiosity, mixed with an undercurrent of concern. Do you remember when you used to draw all the time? Before everything got complicated. The question hung in the air, an invitation not just for him, but for her to dive deeper into the meandering paths of their shared history. Yeah, I do, he responded, his tone slightly softer, letting Jamie's playful banter slip into the background. I was just a kid back then, though. All I cared about was colors and shapes. No one expected anything from me besides that. His candidness tugged at something in Martha, an unresolved yearning they had both submerged beneath layers of expectation. But you had talent, Lucas. The same talent that has brought you here tonight. I wonder if that part of you has been lost among the accolades. This elicited a furrow of contemplation on his brow. She saw the momentary flicker of a buried passion surfacing, triggering her own recollections of nurturing his creativity as a child. But was that the approach she should have taken? Did she risk triggering defenses with her insistence on the past? Jamie, who had been intently watching the exchange, finally piped up, "Hey, creativity is fluid, right? Why not harness that energy to something bigger?" She smiled broadly, attempting to dissolve the tension. What about the next big project, Lucas? You've got to start thinking about how to harness your success into something long-lasting. Martha felt a pang of unease at Jamie's suggestion. While Jamie seemed eager to shape Lucas's narrative, Martha remained concerned about its implications on his autonomy. The very essence of an individual's story lies in it being their own, and she wanted Lucas to recognize that. Maybe I don't know, paint again. Lucas mused, his eyes casting an inner glow of realization, ignited by Martha's earlier words. But what would I even paint? Paint your truth, whatever that means to you now, Martha pressed, the insight spilling from her like fresh paint on a blank canvas. You're not the boy you once were, you've lived and grown. What would it mean to express that evolution? The lightness of the conversation had transformed. She sensed Lucas's internal debate stirring, a fight between the comfort of past expectations and the tantalizing call of authenticity. For the first time, he appeared to waver on the precipice of change. Just then, a sharp laugh from Jamie broke through his contemplation, a comment about Lucas needing to paint his mom's home. Martha felt a flicker of annoyance. Jamie's flippancy threatened to undermine this moment of discovery. Lucas, I mean it, Martha asserted, her voice a shade firmer. Don't let anyone else dictate what your success looks like. You owe it to yourself to explore who you want to be, not who someone else expects you to be. The stirring of conviction within her resonated outwardly. Would that spark ignite Lucas's latent desires, or would Jamie's playful banter snuff it out? In that charged silence, Lucas looked at her not as a mother or an expectation, but as a collaborator in his future. The weight of ambiguity pulled between them, thickening, and for a heartbeat it felt as if they could reach across that void. Martha felt a sense of urgency. This was a transformative moment, a mere flicker away from chaos. Tomorrow, she'd have to push for clarity as well as unearth the facets of herself that still lay dormant. What else had her journey left untouched? What latent skills were waiting for her own re-examination? As she contemplated the unknown, the tension transformed into an electric anticipation. She could sense both of them standing on the cusp of a significant choice. The moment of decision drew close. Would they emerge as the architects of their destinies, or would they allow the burdens of history to constrain them again? The direction their lives would take hung in the air, with a sharpened clarity leading to a new world of opportunity yet shrouded in complexity. With each passing moment, the path to understand their true selves and each other unfolded tantalizingly before them. But would they seize it? Martha drew a deep breath, bracing for what tomorrow might demand of them both, and wondered just how profound would their transformations be by the time the sun set once more. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting warm rays across Martha's cluttered workspace. It felt peculiar, invigorating even, to be surrounded by her past sketchbooks overflowing with half-finished projects, paints still fresh, canvases poised for creation. Each artifact whispered stories untold, beckoning her toward an exploration she had long denied. The promise of a new day unlocked a yearning for growth, igniting a flicker of determination. Martha settled at her desk, fingers lingering over her pottery wheel, recalling how much she had adored sculpting in her youth, the feeling of shaping something from raw material. But the demands of life had molded her into a figure of responsibility, overshadowing her artistic inclinations. Suddenly, Lucas's revelation echoed in her mind, "Paint your truth." What was hers? She exhaled sharply, the weight of procrastination pressing down on her like an anchor. Over the years, she had become adrift in her own life, consumed by obligations, her career, supporting Lucas's ambitions, all while nurturing the remnants of her own dreams. Perhaps it was time to reclaim not just her passion but also the power of choice that she had surrendered. With a glance around the room, Martha began sifting through her tools. Each item kindled memories of exploration. Her need to create was like a dormant spring that had finally thawed. As she readied the wheel and gathered the clay, a storm of thoughts swirled inside her mind. Would Lucas embrace the notion of pursuing his own vision? Or would he fall back into the trap of others' expectations? The rhythm of her hands against the cool clay grounded her, each spin on the wheel releasing more than just physical energy. It was cathartic, stripping away self-doubt. She envisioned creating pieces that radiated her journey from frustrations to triumphs, from fear to vulnerability. This was not simply art, but a manifesto of her life, a visual testament of evolution. As the clay began to take form, so did her resolve. If she could own her narrative, then surely she could inspire Lucas to do the same. The realization flickered a powerful urge to engage him in a project together, an exploration not just of his art but of their intertwined stories. Would working side by side encourage him to confront his own uncertainties? But what if he resisted? Martha's thoughts tangled in worry. She remembered vividly how protective Lucas had always been, guarding himself against the world's scrutiny. Pushing him too hard could backfire, but allowing him to remain complacent was equally perilous. Yet, she realized, every choice she made could ignite either frustration or momentum. Here, she faced her own moral dilemma, to nudge or to withhold, to challenge or to allow comfort. With renewed purpose, Martha approached her phone, mindful of the conversation they had shared. Reaching out for Lucas felt daunting yet essential. If anything, they both needed to be nudged from their separate comfort zones. "Hey," she texted, "what do you think about coming over to work on something together? I'd love to create alongside you. Let us explore, our truth. No pressures. Just us." With her finger hovering over send, her heart raced not from fear, but from the thrill of possibility. Before she could hesitate, her thumb pressed down. The message flew into the ether, a simple gesture carrying the weight of anticipation. In minutes felt like hours as she waited for a response. Doubt crept in, but she embraced it. Growth rarely blossomed without the discomfort of uncertainty. Just then, the phone vibrated. "Sure, Mom. What did you have in mind?" Martha smiled, a rush of exhilaration coursing through her. She felt a rush of empowerment, not just for reaching out, but for allowing Lucas into her creative process, fostering a new dynamic of collaboration. Swelling with energy, she couldn't shake an impression this was a precursor to something transformative. Together, they would challenge their respective paths, perhaps discovering hidden facets of themselves neither had acknowledged. As the shadows lengthened in her studio, Martha began to plan. With each detail, her excitement mounted, anticipation crackling like electricity in the air. The dimensions of this new chapter were already unfolding before her. But even as hope blossomed, a gnawing fear lurked. A stark confrontation awaited them both. Lucas's reaction would determine not just the nature of their project, but the ripple effects it might have on their relationship. In that moment of impending development, she wondered what further discoveries awaited them. Would they emerge resilient from their self-imposed constraints, or would the ghosts of their past threaten to shatter the fragile bond they were reconstructing? The door opened to a world of potential, but beyond the horizon lay uncertainty, the kind of uncertainty that could define or dismantle their renewed connection. Martha paced the living room, anticipation thrumming in her veins. The pottery wheel stood ready, a humble vessel waiting for her and Lucas to mold chaos into creation. Yesterday's invitation hung between them like a promise of burgeoning hope. They were on the verge of tapping into the depths of each other's truths when Lucas arrived. The tension in his posture was palpable. Gone was the boyish exuberance. What stood before her now was a young man weighed down by expectation and self-doubt. Yet, beneath the polished surface of wealth, she glimpsed the spark of creativity she once nurtured. "Hey," he greeted softly, his eyes betraying a flicker of apprehension. "Mornin'. Are you ready to dive into this?" Martha's enthusiasm cloaked her nerves, reminding her why they were here, to explore, to redistribute the weight of understanding. They settled next to each other at the wheel, the soft clay waiting to be seen, shaped, and finally released into the world. "Just remember, there's no pressure," she reassured him. Lucas's brow furrowed momentarily, but he nodded and picked up the clay. It reminded Martha of the time he had imitated her in the garden, sculpting with mud. If only they could return to that simplicity, without the burdens of wealth and expectations. As their hands moved over the dough, she couldn't help but comment. "This isn't just about shaping clay, it's about shaping who we want to be." He cast her a sideways glance, a ghost of a smirk appearing. Who knew pottery could lead to self-help? "I'm serious." She persisted, the clay in her hands transforming as she spoke. "Lucas, where do you want to go? What do you want to create?" "I don't know," he said quietly, frustration creeping into his voice. "Everything feels uncertain. What if I mess this up?" "You will mess it up," Martha replied matter-of-factly, "but that is part of the process. It's how we learn." Inwardly, she commended her own courage to embrace mistakes. What a release. She was no longer the self-doubting mother clinging to past wounds. The energy shifted, and she took a deep breath, willing him to find his footing beside her. That is what art teaches us, finding beauty in the flaws. Her hands formed an imperfect bowl on the wheel, and she looked up. Let us celebrate the imperfections. As they sculpted side by side, Lucas began to loosen up. Each tentative chuckle rolled through the air, snowballing into shared laughter, a camaraderie emerging from the act of creation. "See," she said, nudging him playfully as she splashed a bit of water onto his creation, "this is the fun part. It's not about perfect outcomes, it's about the exploration." In that moment, Martha had conquered a piece of her own fears, but she wondered if Lucas felt it too. Would he embrace this newfound freedom of expression? They continued working through the morning, sculpting narratives more than their creations. Conversations flowed, stirring memories as their hands shaped the warming clay. She relayed anecdotes of her past and discovered Lucas had long abandoned his sketches, seeing them as remnants of a life that now felt distant. "But you loved it," she urged, a heartbeat of disappointment fluttering. "Why not return to it?" He hesitated, clay squishing between fingers. "What is the point? Everyone expects me to be this successful businessman now. But that is not who you have to be, unless you want it to be," Martha said, her own voice softening, encouraging his self-discovery. "What do you feel?" Lucas paused, contemplative. "I want to express how I feel. But I don't know what that looks like anymore, especially in the shadow of wealth." She finished gently. "What will you do if you define yourself beyond the metrics of others?" Something shifted within him, an awakening. Slowly, his clay form began to take shape, mirroring not just his artistry but the layers of his existence. "Maybe I would try to paint again, even if it's just for fun," Lucas said carefully, excitement tinged with fear. Martha's heart soared. "Start there. Paint your truth yourself, your life, without fear." As the day progressed, their creations transformed from shapeless lumps of clay to beautiful, unique pieces reflecting their intertwined narratives. The pottery was no longer just about shaping raw material, it became a celebration of resilience and rediscovery, a testament to the beauty of their connection. The sun began to dip beyond the horizon, casting ember tones across the room. "Look what we've made," Martha said proudly, pointing at their finished pieces, imperfections and all, lined up along the table like badges of honor. Lucas stepped back, awe illuminating his youthful features. "I never thought I could enjoy this again," he admitted, vulnerability woven through his words. "Just remember this moment, this freedom," she urged gently. You can carry it with you. I will, he said, staring at her with raw sincerity. Mom, I don't know how we got here, but I want to keep going. Let us explore more. In that shared acknowledgement, a balance shifted. She felt validated as both a mother and an individual, and he emerged not just as a wealthy entrepreneur but as a dynamic young man reclaiming his narrative. Together, they had built not just pottery, but a bridge back to one another, unearthing growth and transformation beyond anything wealth could define. As the evening settled in, Martha felt a profound tranquility, a sense of completion. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would face them hand in hand, armed with the newfound understanding that true wealth lay in the connections they nurtured from this moment forward. This is the transformative journey of mother and son, crafted with love, patience, and unyielding commitment to reaching beyond the superficial, unveiling the depths of their souls. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show how much these journeys mean to you. Comment your thoughts and theories about Martha S. and Lucas S. journey in the comments below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear about this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the hope found in stories of personal overcoming.